Tonight, you are invited to rest beside the quiet shores of the Sea of Galilee and fall asleep to one of the most comforting stories in the Bible. You will hear how the disciples found themselves far from shore in the darkness of night, how the wind rose against them, how Jesus came to them, walking upon the water, and how, when Peter began to sink beneath the waves, Jesus immediately reached out his hand. This is a story about fear, faith, and the comforting presence of Christ in the moments when we feel most alone. As you listen tonight, you do not need to stay awake until the end. You do not need to remember every word. Simply allow the story to continue softly around you as your breathing becomes slower, your body grows still, and the thoughts of the day begin to fade. Whatever you have been carrying can wait until tomorrow. You do not need to calm every storm tonight. You do not need to know what lies beyond the darkness. The one who came to his disciples in the middle of the sea is near to you now. And the same voice that spoke above the wind still says, "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." So settle into a comfortable position. Let your eyes close whenever they're ready, and allow this peaceful Bible story to lead you gently towards sleep. Our story begins after a long and tiring day, as evening settles over the hills beside the Sea of Galilee. The crowds have been with Jesus since morning. They have followed him along the dusty paths and across the grassy hills, longing to hear his words and to remain near him. As the hours passed, thousands sat upon the ground while Jesus taught them. When evening came and the people were hungry, he took a small offering of bread and fish, gave thanks, and placed it into the hands of his disciples. What seemed too little became enough. The food continued to pass from one person to another until everyone had eaten. And when the meal was over, the disciples gathered what remained. Now the sun is sinking behind the western hills. The bright colors of evening rest upon the water, and the first shadows begin to stretch across the shore. The noise of the crowd slowly fades as families turn toward home. Footsteps disappear along the paths. Voices grow distant. A gentle quiet returns to the hillside. Jesus tells his disciples to enter the boat and go ahead of him to the other side of the lake. They obey, though perhaps they wonder why he will not come with them. One by one, they step into the wooden boat. The boards move softly beneath their feet. Nets are placed aside. A small lamp is prepared for the coming darkness. They have crossed this lake many times before. Some of them have known these waters since childhood. They understand the wind, the waves, and the changing sky. At first, the journey seems ordinary. The boat leaves the shore and glides into the deepening blue. The sound of the oars settles into a slow and steady rhythm. Water gathers around each blade and falls away again in quiet drops. Behind them, Jesus remains upon the land. After dismissing the crowd, he walks alone toward the mountain to pray. The path rises above the shore with every step. The lake spreads wider below him. The last light rests upon the hills, and the villages along the water begin to glow with small evening lamps. Soon, Jesus reaches a place of solitude. There is no crowd here, no one asking a question, no one calling his name. Only the open sky, the darkening hills, and the quiet presence of his Father. Jesus remains there in prayer as night covers the land. Far below, The disciples continue across the lake. The shore behind them grows smaller. The shore ahead cannot yet be seen around them. The water reflects the final traces of fading light. Perhaps they speak quietly about the day, about the great crowd seated upon the grass, about the bread that did not run out, about the baskets they gathered after everyone had eaten. They have witnessed something they cannot fully explain. Yet now the miracle is behind them, and the long crossing lies ahead. The sky grows darker, the air becomes cooler, and the gentle wind that carried them from the shore begins to change. At first, it is only a small resistance against the boat. The disciples pull their oars through the water and continue forward, but the wind no longer helps them. It is turning against them. The surface of the lake begins to move. Small waves gather in the darkness, touching the side of the boat before slipping away. The disciples keep rowing. They know that the other shore is somewhere beyond the night. They know that Jesus told them to go ahead. And so, though the journey is becoming more difficult, they continue. Stroke after stroke, breath after breath, the boat moves farther from the quiet shore and deeper into the darkness. The wind grows stronger. It moves across the open lake and presses against the boat, lifting the water into longer, heavier waves. The easy rhythm of the journey is gone. Each movement forward now requires more effort. The disciples lean into their oars, pulling the wooden blades through the dark water. The boat rises upon one wave and settles behind another. Several of them were fishermen long before they became disciples. They know how quickly the Sea of Galilee can change. They know how to steady a boat and continue when the shore is hidden from sight. And so they keep rowing. The small lamp casts a warm circle of light across their tired faces. Beyond it, there is only darkness. The hills have disappeared. The villages along the shore can no longer be seen. The disciples are far from land, alone in the middle of the lake. The wind pulls at their clothing, drops of water rise over the side. Their hands tighten around the oars as they work together to hold their course. Yet the harder they row, the more slowly they seem to move. The wind is against them. Hour after hour, they continue. Their conversation grows quiet. One watches the water. Another steadies the small sail. The others keep the oars moving through the waves. They are tired from the long day, but they do not stop. Jesus is somewhere beyond the darkness, alone upon the mountain. And they are here, struggling against the wind without him. There are moments in life that feel like this. You may be following the path before you and still find the journey difficult. You may be doing everything you know to do and feel that you are making little progress. But difficulty does not mean that you have been forgotten. The disciples are exactly where Jesus told them to go. The wind is strong, but his care for them has not changed. The night is dark, but they have not disappeared from his sight. High above the lake, Jesus remains in prayer. Though the disciples cannot see him, he knows where they are. He sees the small boat upon the waves. He sees their tired hands. He sees every effort they make against the wind. Not one of them is hidden from him. And tonight, you are not hidden either. Even if this day has left you tired, you are seen. Even if your thoughts have carried you far from rest, you are known. For now, there is nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to prove, nothing you need to carry beyond this moment. Allow the bed beneath you to hold your weight. Let your hands rest. Let the muscles around your eyes soften. Take one slow and gentle breath. And as you breathe out, imagine the noise of the day moving farther away, like a distant shore disappearing into the night. The story continues softly. The hours pass over the Sea of Galilee, and still the disciples row. The night has entered its final watch, the quiet hours before dawn. Their arms are weary, their clothes are damp with spray. The boat rises and falls beneath them. Then Jesus rises from prayer. He leaves the solitude of the mountain and comes down toward the water. The disciples are already far from shore, but the distance between them is no barrier to Christ. He steps onto the surface of the lake. The water that resisted the disciples all night rests beneath his feet. Wave after wave moves through the darkness, yet Jesus walks steadily across them. He is not hurried. He is not afraid. The wind does not turn him aside. With every step, he moves closer to the boat. The disciples do not yet know that he is coming. They continue pulling against the oars, watching the waves and waiting for the first light of morning. But while they struggle, help is already moving toward them. While they feel alone, Jesus is already near. While they see only darkness, he has not lost sight of them. Peace does not always wait for the storm to end. Sometimes it comes quietly through the darkness. Sometimes, while we are still tired and afraid, Christ is already walking toward us. The small boat continues across the restless water. One disciple lifts his head and looks beyond the circle of lamplight. At first, he sees nothing clearly. Only wind, only waves, only darkness stretching across the lake.
For a moment, no one speaks as the disciples watch the figure moving steadily toward them across the rising water. Nothing in their years upon the lake has prepared them for what they are seeing. And fear spreads through the boat as they wonder whether something unknown has appeared in the darkness. Their oars become still, and every face turns toward the approaching figure. Jesus does not leave them within that fear. His familiar voice reaches them through the wind, calmly telling them to take courage because it is He, and that they do not need to be afraid. The wind has not yet stopped. The waves are still moving, and the night remains dark. But the disciples now understand that they are no longer alone. Jesus has come to them. At night, an unanswered question can sometimes feel larger than it did during the day, and an ordinary concern can take on a frightening shape. Yet the calm voice of Christ reaches more deeply than fear. You do not need to force every anxious thought away tonight. You may simply remember that you are seen, known, and not alone, while your body becomes heavier and your breathing remains soft. As Jesus continues toward the boat, Peter recognizes the voice of the one he has followed through villages and along quiet roads. He has watched Jesus heal the sick and feed the hungry, and now he sees him standing upon the sea. Peter asks that, if it truly is the Lord, Jesus should call him to come across the water. Jesus quietly tells him to come. Peter places his hands upon the side of the boat. Behind him are the familiar wooden boards, the small lamp, and the other disciples. Before him are the dark water and Jesus. He slowly climbs over the side and lowers one foot toward the lake. Every instinct may tell him that a person cannot stand there, but he continues looking toward Christ. He releases his hold upon the boat, places his other foot upon the surface, and discovers that the water holds him. With his attention fixed upon Jesus, Peter begins moving forward. The boat gradually falls behind him, while the distance between him and Christ becomes smaller. The wind is still present, and the lake has not yet become calm. But Peter continues, because he trusts the one who called him. Faith does not always mean that every difficulty disappears. Sometimes it means taking one quiet step while remembering who is near. Rest is much the same. You do not need every concern to be resolved before you sleep. Tomorrow may still contain unanswered questions, but none of them must be answered tonight. Allow the bed beneath you to support your body. Let your hands remain still, and listen as Peter continues slowly across the water. For a little while, his attention remains upon Jesus, and the storm around him no longer appears to be the greatest thing before him. Then a stronger movement of wind sends cool spray against his face. Peter turns his head and becomes aware of the height of the waves, the distance from the boat, and the dark water beneath his feet. His fear begins to return. His steps become uncertain, and the surface that had supported him begins to give way. As the surface beneath Peter begins to give way, the dark water rises around his feet, and he feels himself sinking. The wind remains strong, the boat is behind him, and the safety he felt only moments ago seems to disappear. Peter does not try to hide his fear or form a long and careful prayer. He simply calls to Jesus and asks the Lord to save him. Jesus responds immediately. Before Peter can sink farther beneath the water, Christ reaches out and takes hold of his hand. The waves continue moving around them, and the wind still crosses the lake. But Peter is no longer falling. His safety does not depend upon his own ability to remain above the water. It comes from the strength of the one holding him. Peter may still feel the cold water around his legs and hear the storm moving across the sea. But now he also feels the steady hand of Jesus around his own. Fear has not vanished completely, yet it no longer has the final word. If anxious thoughts begin drawing you away from rest tonight, you do not need to struggle against them or search for perfect words. A simple request for help is enough. You may quietly ask Christ to remain near and give you peace. Peter's faith was not perfect, and his courage did not remain strong. But when he called for help, Jesus answered. When fear returned, Christ did not turn away from him. Still holding Peter, Jesus gently asks why he allowed doubt to overcome him. These are not the words of someone preparing to abandon Peter. Christ is supporting him. Even as he speaks, Peter's fear has been seen, but so has his desire to come closer. His doubt has been revealed, but it has not placed him beyond the reach of grace. Together, they begin moving toward the boat. The disciples watch as Jesus guides Peter through the waves. And when they reach the side, hands extend to help him climb aboard. Peter steps onto the wooden boards once more. His clothing is wet, and his breathing may still be unsteady. But he is safe. Jesus enters the boat beside him, and the wind begins to fade. The force that resisted the disciples throughout the night releases its hold. The sail settles, the waves become smaller, and the oars grow still in their hands. A deep quiet spreads across the Sea of Galilee. For many hours, the disciples heard the sound of the wind, the movement of the water, and the strain of their own effort. Now, they hear only the gentle lake beneath the boat, the soft creaking of the wood, and their own breathing within the stillness. Jesus is with them, and the storm that seemed endless has come to an end. The disciples look toward him with wonder. They have seen him feed the hungry and heal those who are suffering. Now they have watched him walk across the sea, rescue Peter, and bring calm to the wind. Those inside the boat bow before him and acknowledge that he truly is the Son of God. No one needs to explain what has happened or fill the silence with conversation. They remain near Jesus while the boat rests upon the peaceful water. You may rest within that quiet scene with them now. Peter is safe. The disciples are no longer alone, and Christ is present in the boat. Allow your breathing to follow the gentle movement of the lake, becoming natural and unhurried. There is nothing pursuing you, and nothing required of you in this moment. The hand that reached for Peter is strong enough to hold the fears you carried into this night. You do not need perfect faith before you can rest, and you do not need to understand every storm before you can release it. Let the bed beneath you support your weight. Allow your shoulders to soften and your hands to remain still. If another thought appears, notice it without following it, and then allow it to move away like a small wave passing beneath the boat. The words Jesus spoke to the frightened disciples may remain quietly with you as you rest. He told them to take courage because he was near, and assured them that they did not need to be afraid. The same presence that brought peace to them remains near tonight. The wind has become quiet. The water has settled. Peter rests safely among the other disciples, and Jesus remains beside them. as the boat begins, moving gently toward the distant shore. The boat continues gently across the quiet lake. The wind that held the disciples in place for so many hours has faded, and the peaceful movement of the water now carries them forward. No one feels the need to begin speaking immediately. They remain still, surrounded by the calm that followed the storm and the reassuring presence of Jesus among them. Peter rests inside the boat with the other disciples. Only a short time ago, he was walking upon the water toward Christ, and moments later, he felt himself sinking beneath the waves. Now he is safe again. Perhaps he looks down at his hands and remembers the moment when Jesus took hold of him. He may begin to understand that the most important part of the night was not his ability to stand upon the sea, but the certainty that Christ did not allow him to disappear beneath it. People often remember their moments of fear more clearly than the grace that met them there. We remember where our courage failed, where uncertainty entered our thoughts, and where a step we hoped to take became difficult. Yet Jesus does not look upon Peter and see only his doubt. He sees the disciple who left the boat when he was called, the man who asked for help when he could no longer continue, and someone he loves and will patiently continue to guide. In the same way, your weakest moment does not tell the whole story of who you are. The worry you experience today does not define you. And the thoughts that returned again and again have not separated you from the care of God. You remain within His mercy, and you do not need to spend this night examining every mistake or replaying every conversation. Whatever remains unfinished may wait until morning, while this night becomes a place of rest and grace. As the boat moves forward, the darkness above the eastern horizon slowly begins to change. At first, the new light is so faint that it can barely be noticed. A gentle shade of gray appears where the water meets the sky. The stars gradually become dimmer, and the outlines of the distant hills slowly return. Morning is approaching. Throughout much of the night, the disciples could not see where they were going. They could not see Jesus approaching across the water, and they did not know how their struggle against the wind would end. Yet even during the darkest hour, the dawn was quietly drawing closer. The night could not prevent the morning from arriving in its proper time. The small lamp inside the boat is no longer the only light around them. The sky grows brighter, and the surface of the lake begins reflecting the first gentle colors of day. Jesus remains with his disciples as they travel toward the shore. They are tired after the long night, but they are safe. Their own strength did not carry them through everything they faced. They were seen in their struggle, found in the darkness, and a company across the water. Perhaps your own morning still feels far away, and there may be questions waiting beyond this moment. You do not need to meet tomorrow before it arrives. The quiet hours of night offer the body an opportunity to become still and allow the mind to release what it cannot complete. They remind us that the world remains beneath the care of God, even while we sleep. The disciples no longer need to watch the wind or search the waves for approaching danger, because the one who rules the water is beside them. In the same way, you do not need to remain awake in order to hold every part of your life together. God remains present when your eyes are closed, and what you place into His care does not require your attention throughout the night. Notice the place where you're present when head is resting, and the support beneath your body. Allow your shoulders to become heavier, while your hands remain quiet and relaxed. Your breathing does not need to follow a perfect rhythm. Let it move naturally and gently, like the boat rising and settling upon the peaceful surface of the lake. The shore continues drawing closer beneath the growing morning light. The distant hills stand quietly beyond the water. Birds begin stirring among the reeds, and small waves touch the land. Soon, the disciples will leave the boat and begin another day with Jesus. For now, however, they remain together within the stillness before morning, with nowhere else they need to be. You may remain within this peaceful scene for a little longer. The struggle against the wind is behind them. The lake is calm, and Christ is near. As the first light spreads across the water, allow the same sense of peace to settle quietly over you.
The story has now entered a place of stillness, and you no longer need to follow every word closely. The voice may gradually become part of the quiet surrounding you. If you're still awake, return gently to the image of the calm lake before dawn, where the boat rests upon the water. The disciples are safe, and Jesus remains near them. Nothing more needs to happen within this moment, and nothing needs to be solved. The wind has become silent, the waves have grown small, and the darkness no longer feels empty or uncertain. It has become a peaceful covering over the lake. Allow a similar quietness to begin, settling over your body. Bring your attention gently toward your forehead, and allow the small muscles there to soften. Release any tension around your eyes. Let your jaw rest comfortably, and allow your tongue to become still. Your neck and shoulders may sink more deeply into the place supporting you. You have carried enough for one day, and none of it needs to be carried through every hour of the night. Let your arms become pleasantly heavy, and allow your hands to remain wherever they feel comfortable. There is no work for them to complete now. Your breathing may remain quiet and natural. With each gentle breath, imagine the surface of the lake becoming a little smoother, while any unfinished thought begins moving farther away. You do not need to chase those thoughts, correct them, or bring them to a conclusion. They may pass through your awareness like distant waves moving toward the shore. If another thought appears, it may pass in the same way. Beneath every passing movement, the lake remains calm, and the presence of Christ remains near. The words Jesus spoke to his frightened disciples may rest quietly within the scene. He encouraged them to have courage because it was he who had come to them, and he assured them that they did not need to remain afraid. Those words were first heard by tired disciples in the darkness, but their comfort may also remain beside you tonight. You do not need to repeat them or make an effort to remember them perfectly. Their meaning may simply rest within you.
as you become sleepy. Christ has not lost sight of you during this night. You are known within every concern you carried into this room, and you remain held within a love greater than the wind and deeper than the sea. Because he is near, you may allow fear to loosen its hold and give your body permission to rest. When Peter began to sink, Jesus reached for him immediately. Christ did not wait for Peter to become calm or prove that his faith was strong enough. Grace moved toward him while he was still frightened and uncertain. That same truth means you are not required to become stronger before you sleep. If you feel tired, uncertain, or unable to find every answer, the mercy of God remains near you, exactly where you are. Sleep is a quiet act of release. It allows you to acknowledge that God can remain awake while you rest, that the world can continue without your attention for a little while, and that morning can arrive without your effort. You are allowed to place the hours ahead into His care. Allow your legs to become heavier beneath the covers, and let your feet settle into stillness. Feel your entire body supported from your head to your toes. There is nothing you need to hold above the surface, and no struggle you must continue tonight. You are resting safely, seen within the darkness, and accompanied through it. The disciples remain quiet while the boat approaches the shore. Peter rests among the others, and the first pale light spreads slowly across the horizon. Their tired hands are still, and Jesus remains at the center of the peace that now fills the boat. You do not need to wait for the sun to rise before allowing yourself to sleep. The story can continue without your attention, and the voice may become softer as you drift away. Let the calm water carry the boat forward, while your breathing remains gentle, and your body becomes increasingly relaxed. The wind is no longer resisting them. The lake is peaceful, and the night has become safe. The one who crossed the water to reach his disciples remains near, and you may enter sleep whenever you are ready.
As the story comes to its peaceful conclusion, allow the remaining words to become a gentle prayer over your night. Heavenly Father, we thank you for remaining near during every hour and for seeing us when the night feels dark and the way ahead cannot be understood. You know every worry we carry, including the ones we cannot clearly explain. We now place into your hands the unanswered questions, unfinished work, unchangeable memories, difficult conversations, and uncertain plans that have followed us into this night. Please watch over this home and allow your peace to rest within every room. Bring comfort to those who are tired or afraid. Draw near to those who are grieving, and give rest to those who are still waiting for an answer. Help each person listening to remember that waiting does not mean being abandoned, and that your care continues even before a solution appears. Lord Jesus, remain near as sleep approaches. You came to your disciples while the wind was still strong, and did not wait upon the shore for them to find their own way back. You crossed the darkness and moved toward them in the middle of their struggle. Please draw near in the same way to every heart listening tonight.
and let your peaceful presence become greater than the noise of anxious thoughts. When our faith feels small, remind us that your hand remains strong. When we feel overwhelmed by fear, help us call upon you, simply and honestly. When we cannot continue through our own strength, hold us securely within your mercy. We are grateful that Peter's fear did not cause you to turn away from him, and that his doubt was not greater than your love. You reached for him while he was still sinking and brought him safely back toward the boat. May the truth of that moment remain with us throughout this night. We do not need to wait until every storm has ended before we rest, because you remain present within the storm. We do not need to understand everything tomorrow may bring, because tomorrow is already known to you. We may release our need for control, because our lives are held within wisdom and love greater than our own. Please allow the body to become deeply peaceful now. Let the breathing remain gentle, the mind become quiet, and every ordinary sound in the room become part of the stillness. There is no longer any need to listen closely or remain awake until the final word. Sleep may come naturally whenever the body is ready to receive it. The Sea of Galilee now rests beneath the first light of morning. The storm has passed beyond the distant hills. The boat is near the shore, and the surface of the water has become smooth. A gentle breeze moves through the reeds while the disciples rest safely together. Peter is among them, and Jesus remains beside them. The night that once seemed endless is giving way to morning, and the journey that appeared impossible has brought the disciples into peace. The words Christ spoke upon the water continue to offer comfort, because he encouraged them to take courage, assured them that he was near, and told them they did not need to be afraid. May the peace of Christ guard every heart listening tonight. May his presence calm the fears that have remained hidden. His mercy cover everything that could not be completed today, and his love remain near throughout every hour of sleep. Father, remind us that we are fully seen, personally known, and securely held within your care. The wind has become quiet, the waves have settled, and the boat rests safely upon the water. Morning will arrive in its proper time, and until it does, we are free to rest. May sleep come gently, may this home remain peaceful, and may every tired heart become still. When morning arrives, grant new strength for the day ahead. For now, help us close our eyes, release the day, and allow every remaining thought to become distant. Christ is near, and we are safe within his care. We place this night into your hands and receive the peace you freely give. We offer this prayer in the name of Jesus. Amen.